back there looking at stuff. You're just listening to people who think they know what they're talking about. Just like I'm listening to people who I think they know what they're talking about. But neither one of us really knows what is going on. I can tell you that.
Well, unless you go through some of it, you're experiencing it yourself, or like I do out here, in addition, talk to people that are in the mix of it themselves. I mean, I'll give you an example. Last week I spoke to a gentleman I spoke to before, who was military intelligence for 10 years. Now he's at the Academy, Police Academy, Sheriff's Academy in Louisiana. He's an instructor at the Police Academy.
Okay, I thought, yeah.
So he's very much involved in the whole deep, he's behind the scenes. He knows what's going on. What made him special, because I speak to a lot of military out here. I'm a magnet for military and police because that's and the ones that are retired, of course, will be a little bit looser with their tongues because they, have less to lose. Yeah. The ones that are in usually are very coy.
Right.
The thing that separated this man apart, he didn't give a damn. I was asking some very deep questions about false flag operations, how police get caught up in the mix.
I don't know what a false flag is. What does that mean?
It is a military term started back when pirates used to raise it. Let's say they'd see a spyglass, they'd see an English ship, so they'd raise the English flag. And then when they came up close, they'd raise the pirate flag, so they would attack.
Right. Clever.
Yeah. So, but bring it forward, a false flag modern day would be the Reichstag fire, which was started by Goering, and they blamed it on a mentally ill Polish guy. So that, passed a lot of the laws, like the Patriot Act is almost word for word taken from that act that happened after the Reichstag fire. So it was a false flag to put through something else. The war that started because it was a false flag. They got some Polish prisoners, put them in uniforms, shot them, and say they attacked us. That's how the World War started. The Vietnam War started off of a false flag, the Gulf of Tonkin. That never happened, saying they attacked our ships. They didn't. So the governments constantly will stage things. They blast it out on the news. We fall for it, and we go to war on false pretenses. What was the Iraq War? Where's the weapons of mass destruction? Oh, gee, they weren't there. What did Iraq have to do with 9/11? Oh, gee, nothing. So false flags happen all the time. Recently, we've had false flags like the school shootings. The one thing that you will find in this, Inspector, back this up, in all of these school shootings, there's always three things that you see that happen. One, the authorities knew. They had a long record of these guys. They were following them. They knew who they were. They could have stopped them at any time, it didn't. Two, they were all on psychotropic drugs. And they were hearing voices in their heads. This speaks to government mind control programs, which MK Ultra and others speak to.
But wait, are you leading to the fact that these school shootings were perpetrated by the government?
Absolutely.
For what? To what end?
To keep the people on edge and to take our guns. It's always, and then the third thing that is always in there is that in every single one of these shootings, there was a drill going on at the same time. So police will get caught up in these false flag operations. And the policeman I spoke to, because when I asked them, when you find yourself as an honest cop in the middle of one of these situations, and your higher-ups are saying one thing, you've seen another, what do you do? He says, there's not much you can do, because if you speak out, you're going to be threatened with your job, or worse.
So tell me one thing. What is the thing about Hillary that I don't get? I mean, I didn't get what the whole hoopla was, and I know there's a huge backlog of information you would have to tell me about. But
well, in a nutshell, the Clintons have been a criminal cabal since they got started out. I mean, between the two of them, they'd steal a hot stove. And they are about, I've heard multiple stories we're close to Arkansas here, so I hear a lot of stories about them.
Wait, besides those thoughts about her, did you see anything good about her? I mean,
no, I haven't.
Relative to him?
No, I have sincerely, everything about the Clintons is phony.
Yeah, but what
everything.
About this guy?
What about him?
He's got a lot. I mean, she's been investigated for a couple of years for a couple of different things.
Which only speaks to the depth of the corruption. Give me an example. The Uranium One deal alone, let's just focus on that, okay? The Uranium One deal, which sold 20% of our uranium to Russia, what? I mean, we import uranium. We need it. At a time when Russia was looking, known in the intelligence agencies, to corner the uranium market, they approached Clinton and Obama, said, we would like to make an offer for this uranium. So they pushed through this deal that was basically all the Clinton cabal to sell uranium, weapons-grade uranium, our uranium, to the Russians. Now, who benefited from that?
Right.
If you can name one way the American people benefited, I'm still waiting for that answer. But the only people that benefited from this, and this is what we know of, this is traceable, this is known, $145 million went straight into the Clinton Foundation from that deal.
I remember that.
So that's one thing. Then we, of course, we got the fact that she had a
But what does the Clinton Foundation do?
The Clinton I would highly recommend reading the book Clinton Cash. It was on the bestseller list. It spurred legislation where it showed
what happens to the money that goes into the Clinton Foundation? Where does that go?
It goes to them, to her.
And that's it? It doesn't do any good in the world?
I know Haitians out here that hate the Clintons because of the $2.5 billion that was collected for the Haitians. They're still living in cardboard shacks. All of that money, like 97% of it, went to her. You can pay off a lot of people with that kind of money. They have gotten away, literally, with a lot of murders. Look what happened to Seth Rich.
So let me just say this. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about each of them. You know that. There's tons about him, and they're being investigated right now.
Which nothing's shown up.
So nothing's shown up with her either.
But, ma'am, I just gave you factual things I can prove that have been shown that we would have gone to jail for. Anything that's been coming up on him, I mean, look, right now...
All the people that he screwed over, that can be proven. All the women that he's abused, that can be proven.
No, it cannot. All the cases...
Do you have any kids?
Ma'am, what has that got to do with it? All the cases that were brought up against him have been dropped. They've been dropped. I'm telling you, there were some of the accusations. He wasn't even in the damn area that the accusation was at.
He's clean as a lily, I know, but do you have any...
I'm not saying he's clean as a lily. I'm saying compared to what the deep state has done.
How about compared to Obama?
Night and day.
Well,
listen, I talked to two Secret Service agents out here for this man,
right,
who also were Secret Service agents for Obama and the Clintons. They were senior.
Right.
They were senior. Now, they were fairly candid with me, and I asked them, some things I couldn't ask them. Right. But I said, you can answer me this. Between the Clintons, who have a notorious reputation for treating their authorities like crap, real bad, and working for this man, what's the difference between the two? And they were professional. He says, at best, the Clintons tolerated us. When this man got in, the first thing he did, he called each one of us into his office separately, sat us down, said, tell me about yourself. I want to know if you have any problems, anything that I can do within my power to make your life so all you can do is concentrate on your job. And he says he talks to us like we're one of him. Easily 17 people I've spoken to that have had personal contact with this man. Every single one of them that have had one-on-one dealings with this man, people that wrote legislation with him.
I mean, I could do that with Obama. I can do it. It doesn't really matter. But I do have the question of whether you have any children.
No.
I don't either. Okay, but I've often thought of asking this, and I haven't gotten the opportunity, but a lot of women support him.
Yeah.
And a lot of women have female children. And I would ask them if he grabbed your girl child's pussy.
You're talking about something that is so insignificant.
Let me just say something. If I said this to a woman who had a female child, if this man grabbed your child's pussy, would you still support this man? And I don't think they would say yes. I don't think they would say yes.
Well, it's a pretty silly and stupid question to begin with. I mean, you're making something very personal.
No, it's a very important question.
No, but how many personal effect? And then the people that we're talking about was all consensual. Well, we're talking about the rapes that her husband committed. That wasn't consensual. When we talk about the rapes that Eric Schneiderman, who was the leader of the anti-Trump movement.
I'm not saying that anybody on.
Can we talk about the Anthony Weiner? When we talk about Harvey Weinstein.
I'm not talking about them.
But you're virtue signaling me, and I'm saying, well, how can you virtue signal me over locker room talk that happened 13 years ago to something right now that's happening in our midst?
I'm not arguing that point. I'm not arguing that they're good.
What are you arguing? I mean, somebody said 13 years ago?
I'm not saying they're good. I'm not saying anything about anything like that. I'm just saying that if this person did what he did to somebody's child, that person would not support him.
But it wasn't a child. He was talking about women that when you're a billionaire and you're at a party.
He's been accused of being sexual with underage people. Anyhow, I've got to go.
Accused? But oh my God, you accuse anybody of anything for crying out? Prove it. We've got proof on her. She's admitted to crimes that we'd be in jail for.
Right. Well, we're both going to be, on opposite ends of the spectrum here, and I'm trying to listen to people who have other things to say about.
Thank you for that, but you got to beyond listening. You got to hear them.
No, I'm listening. I mean,
you got to hear what's being said. We've got proof that this woman has committed treason.
From where I come from, anybody that's a politician who's gotten to that office, to that high of an office, or even lesser so, has done something that ain't so good. And
then why? Then think of this.
Yeah.
Why was everybody against him? Why was the media against him? Hollywood, Silicon Valley, the Pope was against him. Now we're finding out even the Department of Justice, and now it's coming out the FBI put a spy in his campaign. When you have all those people against you and you still get in, that means you overcome the bull crap that you hear here, that they try to feed you. We see through the propaganda and the lies that they're trying to tell us, and we finally put a man in there, because if I had a nickel for every time I heard this from someone out here, he talks what I'm thinking. I'd be as rich as Donald Trump.
Right.
The man is the real deal.
Okay, so I just will leave you with this. If all of those entities have some issue with him, it's a question that you might want to ask yourself also.
And it is because, again, if you look behind the curtain on this. There's a documentary I wish you to watch. It's a very beautiful documentary. Are you familiar with Procter & Gamble?
Yeah.
Of course. One of the largest conglomerates in the world. Foster Gamble, heir to that vast fortune, groomed to be a top 0.0001%, right? Has an epiphany early, and he goes, I am surrounded by people that are insane. The elites I am involved with are insane. They're criminally insane. So he breaks from them. He has a conscience. He makes this documentary, please remember this, Thrive, Thrive, Thrive. You can watch it on YouTube. Watch it. The first thing he does in there, he exposes government cover-ups for over 100 years. things that the elites.
I'm a filmmaker. I've shot things where government has covered up different things. I know that they do. I'm not.
Well, thank you. Then you'll love this documentary because he exposes what they're covering up. How, free energy suppression, everything, right? Then he goes into who's running things, who's really running things. And he explains it very simply. He shows, the small cabal at the top. Then, the banks that own the corporations, the corporations that own the governments that do the military, and us at the bottom. They all control.
I understand.
Explains it very simply. But what I really like about this is he just doesn't show what's wrong and who's really behind the scenes running things. He gives solutions on how we can get back our power from these power brokers that play behind the scenes.
I'll watch it.
And it is extraordinary. I think it'll give you some more insight, possibly.
It's interesting because we're on opposite ends of a political spectrum, but in the middle somewhere we have similar ideas.
Well, of course we do. We all want to be peaceful. We all want to prosper. We all want to have...
And we all want transparency, and we don't get it.
Well, indeed, but that's where, again, this all comes into play. We're not obviously getting the transparency from these guys. They've been lying to us all along. They didn't tell the truth about 9/11. They didn't tell the truth about Sandy Hook. They didn't tell the truth about all these things that are going down.
Journalists, I really respect journalists, and I can't really denigrate.
Why?
Yeah.
Because they lie to you? Why would you expect...
All right, let's go.
If I may...
I have friends that are waiting for me.
I want to ask you to do this. I met the people, one of the originators of architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Okay.
About a month ago out there. Now, I respect this man because...
Did you get a picture?
Whatever you want to put in there, brother.
Okay, cool.
I respect people who put their lives and reputations on the line. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
These men are some of the most respected architects and engineers in the world. They signed their name to a petition saying that those buildings came down by controlled demolition. Now, if you go to their website, you can shake your head like that, and just the factual, physical evidence. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about physics. Basic physics will prove that there's no way in the world 19 hijackers brought down those 3 buildings.
Okay, I'll look at it.
I mean, look at this building here. Watch this building collapse.
I don't want to watch it. I can't.
Well, watch this right here. This is building number 7 collapsing. Now watch that. Nothing hit that building. What brought that building down?
If anybody out there can
Remote
help, any
control, I
vendors
don't know.
Whoa, who pushed the remote control button? What brought that building down?
So, I've got to go. It's been great chatting with you. I am going to look at your documentary.
Okay. Thank you, and here's a get out of jail free card from Hillary Clinton.
I'll get a picture. Can I get a picture of you? I don't really need that because I'm going to try to incorporate all that you said.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. A lot of it, your mind doesn't want to accept it because it sounds so fantastical.
Listen, I told you I'm a filmmaker. I work on films that won Academy Awards.
Really? What is some of your work? Give me some of your work.
One was Deadly Deception. It was about GE and the nuclear arms business and how they colluded with the government and covering up a lot of the
Are you still doing this?
I retired about a year or so ago. Anyhow, let me get
it's a pleasure to meet you.
It's a very pleasure to meet you.
So I can see your documentaries, or where?
Yeah, I'll give you the information. It's called Deadly Deception, and it was made in, I think the Academy Award won in '91, and I was a cinematographer on it. And another film won that same year.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, so it was quite an experience because it took me halfway through filming because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It took me halfway through.
And still you don't believe?
No, I believe the government does do things that cover up. I believe Roswell was a cover-up. I believe a lot of things like that. However, in this political atmosphere right now, with all the divisiveness that's going on, I'm really trying to talk to people who are at the other end of the
And I think a lot of this is manufactured, because if you look at the social engineers that are playing this, and you read books like Carol Quigley's Tragedy and Hope, and None Dare Call a Conspiracy by Richard Allen.
You're giving me too much information, but I want to look at the ones.
Yeah, look at the ones, and they map this out. They've shown what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, how they're going to corrupt the educational system, get everybody thinking into this way, and how now with the sophistication of the mind control programs, the microwaves, and everything else, it gets really deep.
I'm sure. What's your name?
Michael DeBarry, or Badass Uncle Sam.
Okay, well, very nice to meet you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Yeah, I'm gonna go watch that documentary. Yes, thank you.